Our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves. In what way? A knowledge of self. If we could be cured of our slave mentality that was indoctrinated into us during slavery, we would realize that just as the white man can do these things for himself and his kind, we can get together in unity and harmony and do the same thing for ourselves and our kind.
Welcome to another episode of the Blueprint for Black Power podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brother Dre. With me, I have my brother Tazamak Zarai, and we also have our brother Rashad Sekou. How you guys doing today?
What's going on?
Going well.
All right. Today we are going to be covering the section Coercion as Power, which is we're still in chapter 1. Last week we went over Force as Power, where we talked about how the European uses actual physical force in order to get people to do what they don't want to do, but he needs them to do. Also to restrict people from doing what they want to do. So we went over that. We talked about force, both applied and also implied. And today we're going to be talking about another form of force, which is coercion. And we want to jump into that and talk about a couple of good points. And starting out, we'll start with you, Rashad. I know that you wanted to open us up today and talk about a few things just related to coercion as power.
Yes, I did. I appreciate that, brother. Now, Brother Amos Wilson puts it very bluntly by saying they're bluffing. And we all know what that word bluffing means, but let's go down the page here in the section Coercion as Power. Right. At the bottom of it, you'll see it says, the subject's misperceptions and misunderstandings or false beliefs about the power holder's ability to restrict their options or possibilities. And that's bluffing because, again, when we don't understand ourselves as a young people, okay, and we get taught these things in school, when all you see, like Francis Wilson said, all you see is white, then you don't see yourself. So again, you don't realize you have any power. So when you see all this around you, the belief becomes, guess what? I don't have any power. We don't have any power. My parents don't have any power. So again, the bluff holds true based on the images and things that we're taught at a young age.
Right. All you got to do is look at corporate America, what have you, and you see that, or even in politics, right? A young black kid looking at anything, corporate America, politics, or whatever, you see all white people that have these powerful positions. You see them as the CEOs, you see them as the mayors, you see them as the presidents, you see them as the judges, you see them as the doctors for the most part. You know what I'm saying? So all of this is kind of putting in your mind that, you know, I'm inferior. You know, I'm not as smart. I'm not as capable. I'm not as, you know, powerful or strong, even though we see it, you know what I mean? When we compare ourselves one-on-one individually in competitive sports and stuff like that, we know we have these capabilities and strengths, but at the same time, we undermine our own selves by not believing that we can do other things smart, like that are not just athletic. Like we're engineers, we're scientists, we're doctors, you know what I mean? We're mathematicians.
But at the same time, we also hope to be that lottery pick. You know what I mean? If I work really, really hard, you know what I'm saying? I can be, you know, part of their structure. I can make it to the top like them. You know,
but it's like them, right? We don't see ourselves being independent of them or doing our own thing. It's always trying to be like them,
like them. You know what I'm saying? Like them or for them, but never apart from them.
Like, think about this. We know of an American dream, but have you ever heard of an African dream?
Ooh, nice.
Think about that shit.
Nice.
What does that even look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the real deal. But then again, that's psychological poisoning. What are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, once again, we don't recognize ourselves as being African.
No.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So but do you have an African American dream?
That's you being a black American, basically living like a white American, but just in black skin.
Yeah.
celebrating the 4th of July, the whole shebang. You know what I mean? You know?
Yeah.
But
Remember.
and that again, as you go into the what was it, paragraph 2, and I know somebody had it highlighted. I think we all had it highlighted. You know,
Yeah.
where he talks about the often anemic self concept of subordinate persons and groups, their low self esteem, their ignorance of their actual strengths are more the causes of their subordination than it is the actual strength of their oppressors. So it's like we're more the reason for our own subjection without realizing it. But like you were saying, Rashad, it goes back to that schooling, a lot of it, that making sure that you program the kids at a young age. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
because if you look at that, if you look at go back and read that paragraph again, it's
Uh-huh.
pretty much telling you if we go back and just go back to the past of school, like think
Mm-hmm.
about it. We're sitting in a school with white and black children,
Mm-hmm.
and we're being taught the same thing. So look at what we're being taught as young people. We're being taught that we came from slavery, because that's where we start. We don't go
Right.
back to African history. We came from slavery. Okay. Abraham Lincoln is the one who, decimated slavery. So, and that's what we're told. We know that's not the truth, but again, that's what we're told. So
Right.
again, if you have a bunch of black kids and white kids sitting in the same classroom, and you have one set of kids learning, okay, we were slaves, and a white guy is who helped us become free, like, what does that do to our self-esteem as an 8-year-old? What does that do
Right.
to our self-esteem as a 9-year-old? And what does that do to his self-esteem, knowing, guess what? My ancestors are responsible for you being free. You
Mm.
owe me.
Right.
You understand? So
Exactly.
guess what? He can stick his chest out a little bit more because I'm responsible. My ancestors are responsible. If not for my ancestors, you would still be in slavery. That's what that
Exactly.
sentence is telling a 9-year-old. And
It's
again, when you have these teachers saying it repeatedly year after year, it's embedded into a 9-year-old's head.
exactly. It's
You see?
inculcating that shame. You know what I mean? That's
Yes,
a shameful, like, man, my people
yes,
were like, you know what I mean? They were treated like pets, to your people. You know what I mean? You
right,
treated us like animals,
right,
so there's like a shame. Like you said, the white kid kind of, even if they don't realize it, kind of gets to poke their chest out a little more. Like
right. They're not
this is
doing
where
it
we had you.
intentionally. Yeah, they're not doing it out of
Right.
disrespect, but the 9-year-old is saying, wait a minute, my ancestors are responsible for them being free. What do
Right.
you think he feels? What do you think she feels? She feels like, okay, if that's not for me, y'all would still be boom. Once you get a
Right.
9-year-old thinking that, how do you think they're going to think when they're 29? You
Exactly.
see?
Right.
So
Exactly.
And
then you
one of
have
the
the
best,
problems of them being that way, and all of a sudden, the other person is like, well, and we've been learning this. I mean, we hear it in rap songs. I've heard, I'm not even going to say the rapper, but I've heard people say, okay, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Like you as an adult are telling our people that? Come on,
Right.
man.
Right.
You have young
right.
children with low self-esteem. So it makes sense to wonder, why is our self-esteem so low since we've been learning this since the kindergarten?
Mm.
You
Right.
see.
That's
But also
that
to
programming.
but
Go ahead.
also
I'm
to
sorry.
add to that, about that 9-year-old boy to 29 years old, and learning all this from Abraham Lincoln till now. But it starts way beyond that. You know, it's been embedded because once, like you said, how showing how this white man freed us from our slavery. But once again, let's not also forget how my God, my Christ, saved you from your sins.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
that is
Right.
also
Right.
been implanted in there. So
Right.
not only has the head president freed you,
Ooh.
but we're
Right.
talking about God showing you
Mhm.
that white image of Christ.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
it's deep, brother. It's
Yeah.
deep.
That is crazy deep because now your salvation, what you look to be your ultimate salvation, the life itself, you're looking to a white figure. You're looking to that
Yeah,
blonde hair, blue-eyed image of
absolutely,
you. This is my ultimate goal in
absolutely.
life, is to
Yes.
serve this image, to serve this man, to
Yes.
serve this, to do
to
his will.
where we know even black people, if you was to bring a black image of Christ into their church and it's all black, they will call that blasphemy and
Yeah.
ask you to leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How
Yeah.
dare you go against my Christ like that? I mean, you wouldn't need not one white person there to be a appalled by that.
Right.
They
right.
would be this way on their own. And once again, to that subordinate, that ignorance,
Right.
and everything else to go with it, because we're that embedded in this, man. That embedded in.
Right. And it's so crazy when you say that, because even if you have not all blacks that may react that way to a white Jesus, you still, like we talk about oftentimes, because we grew up being surrounded by that image. When you hear it, it's almost like that white Jesus still automatically enters in your mind. Like it's still,
Of course.
you gotta
Right.
push it out. Like, nah, that ain't Jesus. We know Jesus.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But you still
Right.
get those type of images in your mind because
Absolutely.
of the effect that it's
Absolutely.
had on you from growing up as a kid.
Absolutely.
It's
And
always
by you being a conscious brother, you can go on and change that out your mind real quick. But those
right.
who aren't conscious, that doesn't occur.
They won't make that
That
switch.
image stays in their brain. Just
Exactly.
like every time you say
Exactly.
every time you say the name Jesus, bam, that flash of a white Christ in their
Exactly.
brain.
Exactly.
Boom, boom.
And this goes back to the what was that, Pavlov's dog we talk about,
Yes.
where he kind of, you ring the bell and you can make the dog salivate by just training. It's the same thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I teach you something to see Jesus as being white for so long, like you just said, Kenyatta, all I have to do is say the name, the image is gonna pop up automatically. You know it's gonna pop up. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? And if you're not
Absolutely.
conscious, you're not gonna know how to make that switch. You're not gonna know how to make that transition. And that goes into and I think Rashad, you was gonna make this point. The third, what was that? You said something about the third paragraph um, of coercion of the section itself, where he was talking the unending maintenance of the self defeating, something like that.
Yes, I think we were all on that, but the unending maintenance of this self-defeating state of mind in blacks is the fundamental objective of white power and the keystone upon which the infrastructural facade of white power rests. And essentially all that's saying is we're going back to a state of mind. Exactly what Brother Tiles was talking about when he talked about the religion and Christ. That goes back to a state of mind. Once they set that up, they knew at the age of 46 that I still had that image pop into my head to right now. Okay, that's by design, not happenstance, because again, they are the master manipulators of putting something in your mind and making it stick there, whether you want it to or not, is irrelevant. Okay,
Right.
The image is there when all three of us think. That's the first one. The image that comes, we have the exact same image too. Not no different image, the exact same image. But again, when you're talking about the self-defeating state of mind, that's what starts the self-defeating state of mind. You add that with the schooling put on top of that, and then you take that with the fact that, okay, we don't want to do the studying that's required to get out of this thing.
Right.
That's where it becomes a checkmate.
Right. Exactly. It's like the whole objective for them seems to be to put us on autopilot, you know, to make us autonomous. The less you think, the better. You know what I mean? And again, it goes back to what you were saying, why it's so important to get them while they're at 5 years old, or even before, Kenyatta, like you're saying, with
Before that,
you're seeing
if
these
you can
images
start
before
it
you
at,
even get into school, Santa Claus and all that stuff
well,
too.
well, let's really think about it. The majority of us, when we were born, white doctor was probably the first person we seen. We came out the womb. There's a few of us probably had a black doctor, but chances are, you had a white doctor, first image, Gerber baby food. You don't got the white little thing on the jar.
Yeah.
And then you're taken to church by 2 years old. You see the image of the white Christ. It just made everything so much easier for you to see this as being friendly, harmless.
You know what's so crazy about, again, what you're saying, Kenyatta, too, is imagine, because I'm seeing this little 2-year-old kid walk into an all black church, but you got this white Jesus.
Absolutely.
So again, the message, you see all your people around you, but everybody's looking to that white Jesus for.
You forget that you were even one of those children too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you went to
was.
Mama's church when you
I
was
know.
like 2,
That's
3
what I'm
years old.
saying.
All of
Yeah.
us have.
I'm
All
seeing
of us
myself walk
have.
down that damn aisle.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Or the one we're always gonna remember is, like, especially being in the South, when they're passing out all the fans. We all got a fan, got a white Jesus right there on that fan.
Yeah.
You're
Exactly.
looking at it, you see
Exactly.
Jesus standing out there with his hands out amongst his disciples. You
That's
got
it.
your fan, you waving it. You look, while the preacher's talking, you're a kid, so you don't really pay what he's saying on mine. You understand, but you're looking at that fan right there that you got in
Right.
that white image of Jesus Christ on there, matches the one that's up
Right.
there that's on the wall. So
Boom.
you know something in relation with this, but you don't totally get it. But that's not the part that's working on you. It's just the image that's
That's it.
working on your
It's that
brain. That's it.
subliminal program because they never have to say it. They never pull out a scripture that says Jesus is
Right.
white with blonde hair and blue eyes. You never have to say
Never.
it.
Right.
Never have
Never.
to
Not,
say it.
not at all.
Why do
Not
we
at
have
all.
to talk about the color of Jesus? God loves everyone. But
Right.
Yes.
as they said in
Right.
Malcolm X, isn't it
Right.
obvious? You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Isn't
And
it obvious? It's all
right.
around you.
And let's just let it be known, we're not trying to make a conversation into religion or anything of like that. But what we're just bringing out is how they, since the time we've come here, come out the womb, the way these images have been thrown at us, where it's been that much easier to manipulate, persuade, coerce us into
Right.
thinking the way we do.
Because it goes back to, again, what he was saying. That's that self-defeating. I want you to defeat yourself. I want you to think that you're unworthy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That you have
Yes.
no power. You have no strength. You
Yes.
have no business even thinking that you should be in the position that I'm in. That's
Right.
blasphemy. As you had
Right.
brought out, you black
Right.
Jesus, that's blasphemy. The
Right.
idea of you being superior to the white man is you see it as
Right.
being almost blasphemy. How dare?
I mean, other than Saturday, you probably didn't really, you know what I'm saying, from the age of 5 and up. Other than Saturday, you probably didn't really deal with any white folk. Like, but Monday through Friday, you're at school, you got your white teachers.
Uh-huh.
And then Sunday, you're at church, there goes your white Christ.
Right.
And this
Right.
stuff, you know what I'm saying, embedded in you to where you see this all as being friendly.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, and the thing with us is that our parents and even our grandparents, the way they bring us up, they teach us this harmony kind of way, to where see everyone in the world, is of love, you know, and we want it to be that way. However, let's think of how the other race, other races are at home and they teach their families, you know, yeah, God is of love, but see these people right here, you know what I mean? You always got to be careful of them. Well, see, we don't put that consciousness out there to our own, how you got to be aware of who we're dealing with.
Right.
We shun
Right.
that. We don't even think about it. We
Yeah.
try and bring everything into harmony when that's good, but
Right.
at the same time, make yourselves and your children aware.
Right. We would love for the world to be that way, but you have to prepare your children for the world that they're actually in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can teach them to love and respect people, but you have to be aware of the world that you're in and understand that there are certain people that do not love and respect you. And they
Right.
are trying to keep you in a position of inferiority for as
Right.
long as they can. So the only way you can combat that and neutralize that, as the brother Amos always points out, is you have to become aware of the power that you yourself that you possess. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
But we
So
see that the power structure, this is the plan that they got right here, to make you feel inferior,
oh
to
yeah.
make you feel, what I'm saying, low self-esteem and
Yeah.
all these things about yourself to
Ye-
where, it's hard to pick yourself up or to make you feel as though you're going to be able to do this, you know what I mean, even though your race is, what I'm saying, is lazy and all these negative things that you think about your own people.
Right, and which is crazy because we think of ourselves as being lazy, yet at the same time as you and Rashad and I, what we were talking about before you got on, Rashad, excuse me, before you got on Kenyatta, Rashad and I, we were talking about how we built this country. Like you were just kind of taking
Absolutely.
it all in as you're sitting out there where you are, and you're just taking in the scenery, and you're saying, "Wow, we built all this." And that's how it is with all these things. Like when we look at these different monuments and these skyscrapers, a lot of that was us building this stuff,
Right.
big and small. I mean, this
Right.
country, as we talked about, Kenyatta, wouldn't even be what it was had it not been for slavery. America's not a superpower at
Right.
all.
Right.
We built
But
everything.
see, not only doesn't history explain that, the images themselves
Exactly.
don't show that you had
Yeah.
anything to do with this.
Right. And you notice that they leave you out of all those images of things being built in New York and all that stuff. You was in the damn, or even you know what I'm saying? They just, it's important to make sure that they keep the images away from you. That definitely.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
But that goes into and Amos Wilson had used the word psyched out. Did you guys catch that? I think it's around the fourth paragraph where he was talking about
Um,
not allowing yourself to be psyched out.
yeah, like we've only had one so-called black president. Why would you think so if all the other 45, the other 45, because it's been 46 presidents, so or no 47, excuse me. So the other 46 were all white, so why would you think that had anything to do with black people building it? When you when
Exactly.
you when you let us have one black president, then they just made us feel like we were accepted into this, but not that we had anything to do with this. No, because
Exactly.
you got too many white images, too many white structures around that to even make us feel as though we had anything to do with that when we blueprinted it out and built it up from the ground up.
Exactly. Exactly. The whole layout of Washington, D.C. Was that Benjamin Banneker,
Yeah,
right? Benjamin Banneker
yeah,
all day
there you
long.
go.
You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? So it's crazy. It's crazy. But again, that is the whole point of it, is to keep you away from this knowledge, to keep you away from this awareness. That's part of that coercion. I can get you to do what I want you to do so long as you always believe that you're inferior to me and that you do not have the power to operate outside of my paradigm. You know what I'm saying? Like you
absolutely.
can't, so long as they keep you in that mode, then they pretty much got you. You got you. And the thing about and I know we want to get into this and kind of close up on this is talking about they don't even have to use that force and that coercion for a long time. It doesn't work. It's not effective if you keep it on people. You know what I'm saying? You can't just like keep the constant pressure on people. You can only use force and coercion for so long. You eventually have to come up with more economical ways of controlling people that don't require you to eat up all your resources. Because I think Kenyatta, you wanted to talk about a point going into the latter part of this section where it just talks about some of the manipulation. Is that correct?
Yeah, but when we're talking about coercive power, as its chief mean of control,
Uh-huh.
you know what I'm saying? The dominant group must have constant surveillance, you know what I'm saying, and must constantly keep itself fully informed as to the thoughts, and attitudes and activities of its subjects. So
You're
just
re-
know, I'm sorry.
you're reading that's page 14, right? Middle part of 14.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got you.
Because that's what you was bringing out.
Right.
Um, and that right there, what I'm saying, is showing you, how the dominant group, the powers that be, what I'm saying, have to strategize this and constantly have a surveillance of everything that you do, everything you do, not only what you do, your attitudes. You know what I'm saying? When certain things go down, when a cop kills an unarmed black person,
Mm-hmm.
what are your attitudes behind that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They all this is being scrutinized at all times,
Mm-hmm.
to always know your mood, your feeling, because that's how they know how to go on with you.
Right.
That's why when they throw certain people out there, so-called, what I'm saying, to speak for black folks, certain people will just leave them nameless, and they're out there telling us, what I'm saying, calm down, what I'm saying, go home, what I'm saying, we're gonna go according to the law and check this out and make sure justice is done. Once again, sleeping us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Keeping
but
people asleep, keeping them
Right.
appeased.
but once again, it's bringing what once again we have to understand here. What's being brought out here is that form of control. you know, and always to have that control, you must keep a watchful eye on us at all times, at all times.
And it gets so expensive that you do have to come up with other ways to kind of like control the way that people think and operate, because keeping surveillance on people is timely and costly. Even when you think about every and we talk about all the time, like we understand any organization, any nationalist organization in this country or what have you, they're under surveillance. Like, you know what I mean? If anybody is talking anything that's against the American paradigm, they're going to send some sort of an informant, some sort of a person to kind of just like watch what you're doing. And that from, you know, just trying to protect your country. You got to do that, right? You got to say, okay, is this group over here? We understand there's only about 10 or 15 of them, but how dangerous are they? You know what I mean? Are they talking about setting up some terrorist attack? So just you always got to watch people, because you don't want them to go off from your regime. And if anybody does go off from that regime, you're like, okay, keep close eyes on them, because we need to know what they're doing at all times. You know what I'm saying?
I think of it also on another note, whereas, you know, as far as the schools go, and having all these white female teachers in the school, because according to statistics, you know, 60% of these female teachers of these teachers in these schools are predominant, or 60% is white female.
Right.
And so that means for every 10 teachers, you know, 6 of them are white female. And I believe that when it's talking about surveillance, even in that order, you know what I mean? That to surveillance your children, and also to surveillance any other minority that is working inside that school. You know what I mean? Making sure that the curriculum is being put out there the way we want it to be put out there. Not that this white woman has any knowledge that she's even being playing a part in espionage. No, it's just that, you know, you are not, you know the curriculum, and if you actually hear something that sounds threatening outside of the curriculum, then you report it.
You're going to report it. You're absolutely going to report it. And that also ties into the whole training, so you don't have to worry about the force or the coercion. Right. She's kind of at the helm of training the kids.
And she's already been taught to not trust you anyways.
Right. But again, she's in charge of getting the kids in that mental position where you don't have to use the force or coercion, because now you're mentally controlled. You know what I mean? I've trained you how to be an American citizen and what you should aspire to, and these are the parameters that you must always kind of walk inside. And it's interesting to see that the white woman really is at the helm of that, because there's just so many of them teaching in our schools, you know.
But the true surveillance that we need to talk about is 2 things.
What's that?
First of all, the technology on the phones, like we're being surveilled now. Okay.
Right.
We just have to say the right thing. Okay.
Right.
Now, even more important than that, if you look at all the other groups that we come in contact with, what is the one thing that they have that we don't?
How?
The language.
Language.
That's right.
You can surveil anybody.
That is so true. Yes,
so
I remember we talked about that.
What we talk about, they just want to know. I can understand what it is y'all say. You can't plan a revolution if we know the word revolution.
That's right.
That's
right.
And that's why from the history books they said, guess what? You will not talk in this language. We need to understand what you're saying at all times. That's why when they bring a white person in the church, guess what? As long as he's speaking the language, cool. But you don't know what the Asian language is. You don't know what the Spanish language. All these other people have a language where they can talk amongst themselves, and you don't really know what they're talking about.
That's right. That is
don't have that advantage because they took the language from us.
And you had brought out an interesting point a couple of days ago when we were talking about language. And you had said something about how they make our slang seem, or they make us feel ashamed of our ebonics or speaking language, taking the English language and speaking it in our own unique way. We as Black children have been taught, no, you don't do that. That's not the proper way that you speak English. This is you know what I mean? So whenever you have your slang, it's seen as a bad thing. Whereas when you look at the way languages are formed, that's how they really do form. They kind of break off from other languages and they develop as their own slang language. And that's how you get your different creoles, whether you're talking French Creole or Portuguese Creole. But you had made out a good point about that, man. And I was just like, wow, that really hits home because, like you're saying, that you see the importance of why they must keep us, or why they must know our language at all times.
Yeah, and if you look at it, because we're loving people, okay, we come from love. That's who we are, okay.
Right.
If you ever notice when we're talking about something that the opposition does not understand, we always tell them what we're talking about. We explain it to them, whether it's a song. If we hear a rap song and we understand what that rap song is saying, whether it's in code or not code, and they can't pick it up, we always explain it and break it down to them. Because because we're loving people, we think, okay, guess what? We want everybody to get the message, but we don't understand it. Guess what? You don't get everybody the message just because you understand it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's how surveillance happens, because we figure, hey man, we can be friends and you can eat food with us and sit down at the table with us, but at the same time they're saying, well, we want power. You don't want power, so that's not my problem.
And that's the whole thing with the Europeans and the Native Americans.
Right.
The Native Americans embraced them. Hey, we'll show you, we'll teach you our language, we'll show you how to live on this land. And all the while it was surveillance. They were taking notes. What are their weaknesses? Who, that's how they figured out how to take the land. So you're absolutely, that's a powerful point, man. Because we don't think of language as being something that's how they surveillance us.
No, and two, you travel all over the globe and you realize everybody speaks English. Why is that? Not everybody. That's being absolute. That's being absolute. Not everybody. But what I'm saying is, you can go to China and be like, okay, they speak English over here.
Right.
You can go to many countries in Africa and be like, what's y'all's first? I've talked to people and I'm like, what's y'all's first language? English. And then we speak French. And I'm just like, y'all, that's what y'all speak over here? No, I mean, what's y'all's language? And they say English. You're like, what? Oh, I know English is my language here in America, but what's your language? English. And you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah. Now, our third or fourth language is Mandinka, Wolof, and those things, but I'm like, but that's what y'all speak amongst y'all.
Right.
When you have to communicate outside of this community, you have to speak English. So what? They know what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right. Because in order to, once again, who controls your resources? So in order to do business, you have to speak my language. What you speak at home is totally irrelevant.
Yes.
So of course it becomes the second or third or fourth language.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. That is
deep.
Very deep. That is deep.
To where all of us here in the United States, I mean, that just goes to show you how destroyed we are. We got no language at all.
Exactly.
We talk. Every language we have is about them. If it's politics, religion, you know what I'm saying, personal, everything is same as them. Just when you said that, bro, that just sent a chill down my spine.
Because it's so true. And again, think about it. The Haitians, they don't have a revolution if they don't have their own language. You know what I mean? They understood, look, we got to take this French and make it our own thing and have our own way of communicating with each other that the slave master doesn't understand. You can't have a revolution without that. You got to have your own language, your own way of communicating. So, but I know we wanted to kind of close up on talking about the manipulation. There was one more thing I know was a good point. I think, Kenyatta, you had it towards the latter part.
The latter part, you can get into the breakdown of it, but I'll read it. It says, this end is accomplished when power holders discover and utilize ways and means of obscuring or hiding the use of coercion by inducing misperceptions and misunderstandings among the subjects about whether they are actually being coerced or being subjected to a power play.
Right. Keep people confused.
Yeah. And that main part is that I was focusing on is right there at the beginning where they're talking about this end is accomplished. You know what I'm saying? when the power holder discovers and utilizes ways and means of obscuring and hiding use, so forth, what I just read, but is bringing out that this is the end accomplishment. This is where we need to get you. This is where we have to, where we need to make sure you stay.
This is the end goal, right? This is the reason why we're doing what we do, right?
Right. Other than I mean, as far as keeping you alive, other than this, we will kill you, as it said before in the beginning chapter. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, worst comes to worst. I mean, that we will take it there. We will kill you. But as far as keeping you alive, this is the structure we need to have. You being manipulated.
Right.
Low self-esteem, feeling inferior. Those things.
Yeah, because you want to use the black man for these things because, you know, you this is how you make your money. You're profiting off of them. But like you said, worst case scenario, if we got to get rid of you, we will. But while we have you under our control, we're going to make sure that we always have these things in place so that you can never work on a level playing field. And you're going to be confused about the whole thing. Matter of fact, we got it in a way like we talked about, I think it was last week, where you're actually helping this system survive. Like we got you set up in a situation where now you're killing each other. We're taking all that self-hatred, that self-denial, and we're turning it on yourselves. So you keep each other inside of the pit. In other words, you know what I mean? So that you never get out. A bunch of crabs in a pot pulling each other down. You know?
That's it, brother.
That I believe about wraps it up for this episode. I'm not sure if we went over a little bit. And as always, for those of you that do not have the book, The Blueprint for Black Power, written by the late, great Dr. Amos Wilson, highly recommend that you do pick it up. You can actually go to their African World Info Systems. I believe it's AfricanWorldInfosystems.com, where you can pick up the book from that website. Highly recommended because I believe that is still owned by the Wilson family. So if you do purchase from that website, you will be giving directly to the late Dr. Wilson's family. We do have a reading of this section. I have the link below. So for those of you that do not have the book, but you want to know what's going on and kind of follow along with us on this podcast, highly encourage you to go ahead and listen to that reading. And until next time, we look forward to seeing you guys. Next week, we will be covering its influence as power, right?
Yes.
All righty. Influence as power is going to be the next section, and we promise you that it will be very, very insightful. A lot of material in that little section for us to go over. So we look forward to seeing you then. Brothers, did y'all have some last comments or something you wanted to say?
Well, I just want to say, if you don't understand, just remember it's a black thing.
There we go. I like that.
All right.
Okay, Boogie.
My black people.
All right.
Stay strong.
All right. Stay strong. Love y'all. Until next time. Peace.
Our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves. In what way? A knowledge of self.